there has been a smear campaign against the relatives of the victims of Tempe, who, mind you, most of them were students.
Greece really needs to get its act together, or Europe needs to sort out what is going on in Greece.
Hey, and welcome back to Brussels Signal Studio. This is Interference, and that is my hand jive. And we have, as usual, Alex Phillips live from London. Hi.
Hello there, and we've dropped 10 degrees. Thank goodness. It felt a little bit too continental for my liking as a Brexiteer, but we've gone back to good old British weather again.
None of that European weather, please. We're British. We like a bit of frost and fog. And also, special guest today, and on the subject of heat, this is a country that definitely feels the heat in more ways than one. Why? Because we have Konstantinos Bogdanos, former Member of Parliament of Greece, and it's hot over there, not only in terms of the sunshine, but also in terms of the scandals that are breaking surrounding the Greek government, the government of Mr. Mitsotakis. So, what actually happened here, for the benefit of our viewers, is we did Spain last week, and we really went into the corruption scandals that have beset the government of Mrs. Sanchez. And then Mr. Bogdanos, he said, what are you talking about? The Spanish, they are amateurs compared to the Greeks, amateurs. So we thought, okay, let's have a look, see what's happening in Greece. So, where should we start? Fake farmers, perhaps? Go for it. Konstantinos, what's going on with this fake farmers corruption scandal?
You said amateurs, and well, do you remember Les Professionnels with Belmondo? It appears that whenever there is an issue of corruption, Mitsotakis is not just in the thick of it, but in the middle of it. Somebody I know actually made a statement that he owns 1/3 of the island of Naxos. His name is Dimitris Kapounis, and he went to the prosecutor and said, you know, everyone is just declaring non-existent farmland and livestock, which is completely imaginary. I'm going to do the same so as to expose them. So he said, I own 7,500 acres in the island of Naxos, which is 1/3 of Naxos. And the Mitsotakis government handed him about €500,000. And this has been going on since 2019. And the problem here for the Greek government is that it appears, or it is being proven by the European prosecutor, that politicians, ministers, and members of parliament are facilitating and guiding this process. Now, in a country where everything is centrally controlled by the Prime Minister himself and his entourage, nobody believes that Mitsotakis had no idea about what's going on.
So, is this why the UK left, Alex?
Well, I don't think our farmers were good enough to be inventing livestock. I mean, they were complaining about having their sheep's ears tagged up on the Welsh mountains. But, you know, it just shows you what it can be like in the EU as this massive entity with a huge budget. No one really knows where accountability comes in. We discussed this last week. Is it the job of Brussels to monitor these things? Is it the job of the Greek Parliament? And I am sure there are countries in the EU, that particularly countries, and I'm not saying Greece actually in this instance, but particularly countries that might have struggled economically in the past, or actually have a bit of a track record, a hinterland when it comes to corruption, that the EU provides for them the perfect opportunity to fill their pockets, a bit of paperwork, and that's what you do, X, Y, and Z, to get your particular grant, your subsidy. And it's just astonishing, isn't it? I mean, I love this idea that the Prime Minister's like, yeah, well, you know, to prove that they're doing it, I'm going to do it myself. I mean, what a crazy concept is that? Can you imagine a policeman saying, well, you know, to prove that these people are all dealing in drugs, I'm going to stand on the street corner and deal some drugs myself. It just, you know, I wish it surprised me, but it didn't. But, you know, no offense to Greece, we do know that in times past, Greece has been accused of potentially cooking the books. And of course, they were hit extremely hard by the Eurozone crisis, and I think are probably still in recovery even from that. But still, it shows you that corruption is alive and well across the EU.
So, Konstantinos, give us some more detail on this fake farms, phantom livestock story, and tell us if, in your opinion, Mitsotakis is going to survive it.
Well, Mitsotakis is going to have a very hard time because let's first get the volume of the whole thing. I mean, we're talking about 70 billion euros in the last decades, of which a big part has to do with the Mitsotakis government. We're talking about several billions of euros, money given to Greece by the European Union to be allocated to farmers, which is being allocated at the moment, actually, because this has not stopped, to imaginary farmers. So we have a fine at the moment to pay of around 415 million euros to the EU, which is only up to 2023. So the data has not surfaced for the years 23 to 25. And mind you, 23 was an electoral year. So this whole scandal also has to do with electoral fraud. Because, for instance, in places like Crete, let's suppose Alex owns, or Alex gets in touch with me, and I tell her, well, how would you like to own 100 acres in Crete? And she says, well, I don't. He says, that's not the problem. We're Greeks. We have the back of Mitsotakis. We have European money. We're going to do whatever we wish. So now you own 100 acres in Crete, and you're going to get 500,000 or whatever that is of subsidies for this. You don't need to work it. You don't need to have animals. We shall make up some sheep or goats or whatever. But at the end of this whole, you have to do two things. One is you give me half the money because I'm the middleman, and I'm in touch with the ministers and the members of parliament, as it is being proven by the phone calls that have been recorded by the European prosecutor and the surface. And the second thing you need to do is you and all your family are going to vote for New Democracy, are going to vote for Mitsotakis. So by 2023, the island of Crete, where Mitsotakis comes from, did not vote for New Democracy. Traditionally, it was the left-leaning socialist island, call it what you want, voted for Tsipras, and before that for Papandreou. But in 2023, the whole of Crete massively voted for New Democracy. So there is an electoral fraud aspect to the whole scandal. And then more names keep appearing, surfacing, coming up. This means that if in the first batch of names for the period 2019 to 2022, you had the resignation of one minister, three deputy ministers, and the involvement of so many members of parliament, well, if this keeps coming up in batches, like the same for 23, the same for 24, the same for 25, at some point, he's going to run out of ministers who will be asked to resign. So he's going to run out of personnel. And for once, this is not something that Mitsotakis can stop, because he does control the Greek judiciary to an extent. I'm really sorry. I regret to say that. I know this is very important, an allegation to make, but he does control, to an extent, the Greek judiciary, and he completely controls, by funding, again, the Greek media. But he cannot control the European prosecutor. And for the first time, I have this feeling that his very close, dear friend, Ursula von der Leyen, whose husband has received European money through Greece for his company, because they're such close, darling friends, is not going to be able to protect Mitsotakis. This is the one thing that Ursula von der Leyen and his dear friend, because what is Mitsotakis? Mitsotakis is a liberal pet student of the international elites and Brussels. So whatever he does, he's not Morawiecki. They brought him down. He's not Orban. They have been harassing him. He's not Fico. They're going after him. He's Mitsotakis. He's all LGBTQ. He's all illegal immigration. He's all Davos and World Economic Forum. So they leave him be. Well, I'm not sure that they're going to be able to do this time.
There you go, Alex. There's a deal for you. All you have to do is sign on the dotted line, and you get however many acres of property on Corfu or something.
I can't wait to own 1/3 of Paxos or something with a fictional herd of goats. I mean, brilliant. I never knew I needed another second income as a farmer, but if it's that easy and the check's in the post, I'll vote for anyone. But realistically, this is incredibly damning. This level of corruption going all the way to the top is toe curling, and it's something that in the UK, when we were a member of the EU, we used to point our finger at lots of other countries and point out all of the corruption and the fraud because it's too easy to do. You're talking about huge sums of money, lots of paperwork, very little accountability. I'm sure it happens in other countries as well, as people try and figure out how to get their hands on as many subsidies as possible, how to bend the rules, how to fudge the paperwork. But it's that connection to von der Leyen and von der Leyen's husband who, look, I don't know, but I've heard allegations that he's done pretty well out of his marriage to her and her position as the head of the European Commission.
Now, Konstantinos, what happened to that Tempe train crash scandal? I know that there was the government wobbled at that moment. Is that all brushed under the carpet now? What's going on there?
Well, the thing is, let's take this from the beginning. You had two trains crashing into one another. One was a freight train and one was a passenger train. So the first thing is, why would you have two trains crashing into one another? Because a particular contract 717, never materialized throughout the last couple of decades because, the governments and ministers in charge of making it happen had interest in making it stall, because the more it stalled, the more money you would have to get from the budget in order to get it going. So people were actually making money out of it. So you never had this contract materialize, which had to do with safety checks and balances for the Greek railroads. That's the one thing. The second thing, which is even more important for a big part of Greeks, mind you, 70 to 80% of Greeks, according to opinion polls, believe that there is foul play and that there is a hush-up. Mitsotakis has been trying to cover something up. The second thing is that there was a huge explosion, an explosion that cannot be justified by just metal crashing into metal. So you had volatile carbohydrates, which, according to chemical engineers, were the only thing that could have produced this explosion. And this explosion actually decimated around 30 people. Of the 57 who lost their lives in the Tempe crash accident, about half of them could have been saved if you didn't have this explosion. Now, people are asking, what fueled this explosion? And the Mitsotakis government is trying to say that this was silicon oils, valvolines, which, according to chemical engineers, is not possible to happen. You have people disappearing, people having strange accidents. You have the murder of the son of one of the prosecutors who were in charge of researching and finding out what happened. A lady from Larissa had a son. Her son was abducted and he was found dead up in the mountains. You had two witnesses. One is having a car crash on Saturday, and the second one is having a motorcycle crash on Monday. So people believe that there is serious foul play there because either you have something that has to do with high-profile smugglers. I wish to remind you at this point that Greece is to an extent run by oligarchs and cartels, and whatever has to do with energy, either distilleries or shipping is right in the core of the Greek power structure. Either you have smugglers or you have NATO fuel, because you have the the Reaper drones, which are based in the NATO base, air base in Larissa, and maybe they would have been flying black ops missions to the Black Sea in order to facilitate the Ukrainian side in the conflict there. So, for one reason or another, nobody wants to disclose, and I mean nobody from within the government, or of course the Prime Minister himself, what this train was carrying. But because of the fact that Mitsotakis rules Greece with an iron grip, the media dance to his tune. He has been giving out hundreds of millions of euros to loyal outlets, and he's silencing all the votes, all the voices that ask questions, either with slap lawsuits or by just defunding all the outlets that he doesn't really like. This thing has, in a sense, toned down a bit. So Mitsotakis was with his back against the wall February, March, when you had like millions of Greeks taking to the streets against this government, but with a little help from his oligarch and media friends, and of course from the Greek judiciary. Well, he appears to have exited the danger zone just a bit. And when this happens, and there you can actually hear a sigh of relief from the Greek number 10, here comes OPEKEPE, the agricultural subsidies scandal, and he's once more at the ropes.
Listen, you mentioned shipping there, and that's the under the radar. We have this under the radar section to this interference podcast, and you mentioned shipping because obviously Greece and shipping are synonymous, and this takes us on to, and you also mentioned Ukraine, because you Greeks have been accused of being a bit pro-Russia or of facilitating the Russians by selling your old ships to the Russians so they can get around sanctions. Now, is that a fair accusation?
Yes, it is. Actually, just for reasons of correctness, I said distillery before. I meant refinery. It has nothing to do with good old Scotch whiskey or vodka. We're talking, of course, diesel or gasoline or that sort of products. Well, thing is, most Greeks are not particularly pro-Ukrainian. So let's begin with this. If you ask Greeks, okay, who would you support without thinking about it too much in this Russia-Ukrainian thing? Most Greeks would say Russia. But Mitsotakis is the exact opposite. He's like 100, 1000% pro-Ukraine. Greece has a huge problem with the Turkish threat and armed forces just across the pond, the Greek pond, I mean the Aegean Sea. But still, we're giving out loads of ammunition and military equipment to the Ukrainian side. I mean, we might as well be, no drama here, just being objective, we might as well be the only country in the European Union that faces a true threat from another country. We need our military. He has been giving away stuff, and he's always very, very supportive and very, very vocal in favor of any form, kind, or manner of sanction against Russia decided by Brussels or NATO or before Donald Trump, his beloved Joe Biden administration. Mind you, had Kamala Harris won the last election, then Kyriakos Mitsotakis would now have pronouns on his profile, which is he, him. That's the kind of guy we're talking about. He's so liberal in the bad sense of liberal. So Mitsotakis is fully pro-Ukraine. At the same time, under the table, he has been making his lucrative deals with the Greek ship owners, the biggest ship owning nation in the world, not state, nation, because most of those ship owners do not hoist the Greek flag in their ships, do not fly the Greek flag in their ships. But what most of them also own the Greek media, the Greek football teams, amongst other things. And of course, they're in bed with every government, not just the Mitsotakis government, but Mitsotakis speaks the same language with them. So they sat down, and Mitsotakis has only vetoed anything in the European Union once. It was not a veto about Cyprus. It was not a veto about the Aegean Sea. It was not a veto about the so-called Northern Macedonian state, which always violates the Preface Agreement. Nothing to do with it. It was a veto that would allow Greek ship owners to carry Russian carbohydrates, mainly oil, away from the Black Sea to meeting points off the coast of Greece, where it would be transferred to other ships owned by Russian companies that have bought those ships from the old stocks and fleets of Greek ship owners that then complete the transit to either Indian or Chinese ports, actually providing a lifeline to the otherwise would have been crippled Russian economy, which actually flourishes now because Russia sells oil to everyone else apart from most of the West. And this is being facilitated by Mitsotakis' close friends. People who own the very national TV networks, the big websites, and the journals that always support Mitsotakis in cases like Tempi. There has been a smear campaign against the relatives of the victims of Tempe, who, mind you, most of them were students because it was a night train going from Athens to Thessaloniki, and students were commuting back to their families or back to their unis. So the same people who smear the relatives of the Tempe accident, who want to know what decimated our children, are the ones who own the ships that form this dark fleet. This is how you call it. This is how you have called it, Justin, in your news pieces, which facilitates Russia, despite the fact that Mitsotakis is the #1 supporter of the green shirt, Zelensky.
Alex, what do you think? What do you think to that?
I mean, it's just there's so much to unpack here. I mean, we started off talking about people claiming they had cows and sheep and goats that they didn't have, to discussing what's going on with a despicable, awful, tragic train accident when nobody's being told quite what happened to cause two trains to collide and then explode in an inferno, claiming so many lives. And now we're talking about Greek shipping magnates helping Russia's dark fleet, their shadow fleet, to continue to sanctions bust, to take oil and gas over to other states where it's then refined and processed and sold back to Europe. I mean, it's really hard to know where to begin in all this, other than Greece really needs to get its act together, or Europe needs to sort out what is going on in Greece, because it's clear to me that there are huge problems, that the country must be rife with corruption if it's going all the way to these levels.
Well, listen, there's a cultural aspect here. If I have 30 seconds. You see, Greece is not your normal liberal European nation. I mean, while you were in the age of enlightenment, Lumière, while you were producing all those philosophers and thinkers in Europe, which to a great part seeked and found inspiration in ancient Greek philosophers, but that's very long ago. Greeks were under the Ottoman rule. So they they tend to look at the state as an enemy, as an adversary, as an opponent. I mean, by cultural tendency, they are trying to fool the state because the state is against them. So what you need to do with Greece is A, understand where Greece is coming from historically, and B, be very strict. Greece has been doing what Greece has been doing, no doubt about that. But the European Union has also been complicit in all this. I mean, even when you go back at how Greece entered the EU with fiddling the numbers, Greece did not fiddle the numbers itself. It fiddled the numbers in harmony with those people, agencies, and organizations
And banks.
whose duty was to receive the fiddled numbers and take a thorough look at them. And they never did so. Because at that time, I mean, my personal belief, and maybe it's not called for during our conversation, is that the Simitis government was one of the worst governments Greece ever had after the dictatorship. And he's actually the role model of Mitsotakis. Mitsotakis' role model is not a politician of the former Conservative Party, because New Democracy is not conservative anymore. Same thing happening in the UK, where conservatives are no longer conservatives, is happening in Europe as well. In Greece as well. Mitsotakis' role model, the one he looks up to, was Simitis. But still, I have to say that Simitis did not do it alone. At that time, the European Union wanted to expand the Eurozone so as to project an image of success and another success story for the Euro. So it was, come on, Greeks, get in here, and we'll figure out how exactly we did that later on. Same thing is happening with Tempi. Same thing is happening. I mean, if we sit down and start thinking about it, I mean, there are like tens of scandals during the last decades. So, but the EU needs to take a closer look at Greece and how it operates. And especially, the EU needs to be strict on Greek leaders, despite what they do on other fronts and issues.
But the thing is, though, I guess the problem is you clamp down on Greece, you're going to have to clamp down on Spain. I mean, you can't really single out one country if they're all at it, can't you? Let's face it. And just to be clear, we're talking about, I remember I was in the European Commission press room when they talked about Greece entering the euro, which is what we're talking about here. The Greek entry into it was aided and abetted by, I think there were one or two merchant banks there who helped everyone cook the books, because, as you point out, the aim was to expand the Eurozone because it looked good, all these countries entering, right? And they entered under false premises, and when everyone found out, it was too late. They're already in. Okay, fair enough. Well done to those who cooked the books. I guess they got away with it. Now we must move on. We must move on because tempus fugit and all that. We have another section on interference, and that is heroes and zeros. Right, this week's hero and this week's zero. I think, Alex, what you think? We're gonna have to name Prime Minister Mitsotakis as this week's zero, unless there's somebody else.
I mean, I think that this is astonishing. I mean, it's absolutely baffling, not just baffling, it's jaw-dropping what I've learned today recording this episode. I mean, absolutely astonishing.
We also have to come up with a hero. I mean, we focused on Greece, but there have been stuff happening elsewhere in Europe as well over the last week. One thing that's happened is we are going to have the Supreme Court in Poland has decided that President now Konstantinos, you're going to help me with the pronunciation. Is it Naroshki?
Oh God, Navoshki? Yeah, I don't know.
That's our best attempt at Polish. He's actually, the Supreme Court has confirmed that he will be president. The Tusk government was trying to stop him. Obviously, they're on different sides of the political spectrum. So I propose that we name Poland's Supreme Court as this week's hero.
It's a lovely development for the books, because what we've seen happening across the West now for the best part of 5 years, if not more, is the use of lawfare to try and block populist parties or right-wing leaders from getting anywhere near power. So to actually see little Donald Tusk be put back in his box, the Greek courts upholding the results and actually ushering in someone who could actually be quite good to join the ranks of the sensibles, the sort of mildly Eurosceptics, the right wings, the pro-capitalists. I think it's good news. So well done to the Polish Supreme Court.
Did you follow this one, Konstantinos?
Absolutely, because we were quite afraid that they could pull off a new Romania in Poland. I mean, the disgrace of what they did, tampering with elections in Romania in an authoritarian, despotic manner, is an absolute shame for our institutions. And to sum it up, in a nutshell, what is happening in Greece is that because people see Mitsotakis as an enfant gâté, a protégé of the European elites, Greeks are turning more Eurosceptic. And this is a call to Brussels from Athens to get serious and get their act together. Because Greece is a very funny place. We might need the European funds in order to stay afloat, but at the same time, if we really get pissed off, we can say, well, I'm not going to say it, bugger off, get off our backs. We almost did that, bankrupt and on our knees on 2015. So if Greeks now feel that a ruler has been imposed on them by Brussels, by allowing Mitsotakis to do whatever he wants, he's got a wild card from Brussels and from the Ursula gang. Well, Greeks are going to be detesting the EU more and more by the day. And then some serious Eurosceptic, competent and charming person is going to come up and say, well, we don't need those EU Brussels imposters anymore. And then you're going to have a Brexit where you least expect it.
Eurosceptic and charming. Eurosceptic and charming. That sounds a bit like you, Konstantinos. Eurosceptic and charming. Are you looking to get back into politics?
No, not at the moment, really. We'll see about it.
You fit the bill. You fit the bill that you've just described.
To kind of yours, I'm a bit less Greek than I should be, possibly.
You're less Greek than you should be. Well, we could get into that, but we don't have time. All we have time for, actually, is a shout out to the people who've been leaving comments under the Interference podcast. The last guy, actually, he was reacting to one of your comments, Alex. He said that he was proposing the XB-70 Valkyrie supersonic bomber as a hero for maybe one of our future episodes. I'm not quite sure. That's not the same as the bunker buster bomber, is it? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for those comments.
But, all military aircraft, as long as it's not Russian-made, are extremely good.
Oh, well, there we go. And a surprising amount of technical knowledge coming from the Alex camp there. And so keep making those comments under our episodes. Thanks a lot for watching. And I'm sure we all agree, don't we, Alex, that Konstantinos was good value for money.
Amazing. I've learned so much. I'm going to have to go away and process all of this now. Absolutely astonishing.
Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.